I really love that the governor's office picked this topic because I think it is so relevant today and going to be more relevant as the days go by. And we have two experts on the IT side and also someone from the legal side, which I think a lot of times we forget. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Brad Barnett. I'm President and CEO of the Kerrville Area Chamber of Commerce. I've been blessed to be here in Kerrville for almost 2 years now. So after a 15-year stint in Midland, as I tell everybody, the scenery here is so much better. A little easier to get the kayaks on the water because unless it rains and floods in Midland and you get the boat out in the middle of the road, and that's not exactly safe. So it is a pleasure to be here, and I'm going to go through and introduce our panelists by name, but then I'm going to let each one of them tell you a little bit about their background, and I also want them to tell you why they got into cybersecurity, because I think there's that, helps you understand their background, where they come from, helps you understand their passion. But we have Alyssa Fallon with UT San Antonio. We have Dr. Kunle Taiwo with Schreiner University. Most of you have probably had a chance to meet him. And we have Natalie Wilson with Langley Benock Law Firm. So I want to go ahead and start out. We'll start on the far end with Alyssa. What got you, give me a little bit of background about yourself and what drew you to cybersecurity?
So I'm Alyssa. Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm Alyssa Fallon. I work with UTSA, Small Business Development Center, Center for Government Contracting. I'm currently a PhD candidate at the University of Incarnate Word, working towards my doctorate in organizational leadership. And I'm currently researching cybersecurity awareness among the aging population, which is 65 years and older, and during COVID-19. So as you can see, I'm kind of in my element. But what brought me or drew me to cybersecurity is one, I had received a file that I was not aware of. And the more and more I researched on how to fix my computer because it was modifying my settings and whatnot, I grew a passion and had some interest on how to secure it. The second reason is my mom's identity, her credit card got stolen, and the attacker had created a debit card with her card number on there. So I wanted to help out my community with not just the aging population, but everyone, just by being cyber ready.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Dr. Taiwo, I know you've done research in Malaysia, and we were talking about a little bit of a connection with Louisiana, and my wife's family is from Louisiana, so there's that tie. But and I know right now you're kind of the point person here at Schreiner University, and there's a lot of changes, a lot of things that they're adding to the program here. But a little bit maybe more about your background and why you're so passionate about cybersecurity.
Thank you very much. My name is Kunle Taiwo. I'm an assistant professor with the CIT department here at Schreiner University. And I'm also the chair of the department. And my background is actually computer science, and my master's and doctorate degrees in information technology. Initially, I was researching on the acceptance and the use of information systems. And after a while, I got to understand that you can actually use information system. You can make people to use information system. However, when it comes to securing information systems or the assets that you have on the corporate network, protecting it seems to be much more important than using it. Because if people are not aware of how to properly use the information system in a secure manner, then everything you've built and all your assets is actually going to be exposed. And so I was teaching a class back in Texas A&M Commerce, and that's where I got to know, that was back in 2014. That's when it struck my mind that I think I have to just abandon ship on information systems and look into how to, thank you, focus more on how to secure the information system and then the corporate enterprise. And I've actually worked in the industry for a while, besides the research that I've done in Malaysia and a little bit of research here in the US. But then I got so passionate about teaching that, and I discovered that when it comes to securing cybersecurity expert that we have in the US, there are a lot of people that are not, that do not have the background in IT that are moving into cybersecurity. And I was talking with someone back in 2015, and he was telling me that there are so many concepts he doesn't understand because he doesn't actually have the background in IT. So I thought of I think it's best for me to move into that section so that I'll be able to impact people and get, impact knowledge to those that will be, that have an IT background and they'll be able to join the workforce for them to be able to know how to secure the, the asset that you have in the company. So that's how I got to move into, from information system, move into securing information system cybersecurity. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks so much. And Natalie Wilson, has a passion for helping businesses navigate challenges in difficult economic times, which I know over the past few years we have had no challenges at all in the business world. And she brings that perspective from kind of that legal aspect. But what got you involved, Natalie, in cybersecurity?
Sure. Thank you, Brad, and thank you to the Governor's Office and to Schreiner University and y'all for having me today. I started my legal career as a bankruptcy lawyer, and I'm still a business bankruptcy lawyer. But what brought me into cybersecurity, data privacy, or data protection and privacy, that's where I saw the future of bankruptcy going. These huge breaches, especially in the healthcare sector, were driving bankruptcy cases because they can be devastating financially, and the actual attack can be devastating financially, but also the reputational impact afterwards, right, can really undermine everything that a business has built and really drive customers away. So I earned my Certified Information Privacy Professional certification from the International Association of Privacy Professionals. And while I was looking towards enhancing my relevance and usefulness as a bankruptcy professional, privacy and data protection and cybersecurity were issues that our firm was seeing across industries. And so Langley Benak is a full-service firm with offices from the Hill Country. We have offices here in Kerrville and in Fredericksburg. We go out to Castroville, San Antonio, Karnes City, New Braunfels, and then down along the border in Carrizo and Eagle Pass. And I have assisted clients in every industry we serve and pretty much out of every office we serve doing readiness, so an information security response plan, because the question is not if you will have an attack or if you will have data compromised, it is when, and the recovery is much easier and cheaper and faster if you are prepared for it. And then I also assist with the actual incident response, with reporting to agencies. I can interface with law enforcement if necessary. I can interface with third-party vendors. I do a lot of contract review because especially if you're contracting with larger entities, they're going to have cybersecurity requirements. If you're in a covered industry with particular privacy and data protection laws, right, you need to make sure your vendors are compliant. So I do a lot of counseling and transactional, not so much litigation side, because we can get into this. There isn't a whole lot of litigation in Texas in this area, but a lot of preparation and a lot of training.
At the Kerrville Chamber, we're in the process of putting together information to get our accreditation once again through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And one of the things the U.S. Chamber instituted several years ago was when you do your accreditation, beyond the financials, is they want you to have an information technology plan. So looking at that, and when you look at the small businesses, we have roughly 2,000 businesses in Kerr County, and over 90% of those businesses have 20 employees or less. So we really are that haven for small businesses. And I think that can become more of a challenge for a small business to handle information technology and cybersecurity. So what would be some of your recommendations if somebody is a small business owner, assuming they have no IT cybersecurity plan? What are the top couple of things they need to do today to get going down a good path? And just anybody that wants to jump in.
I think the first thing that business owners have to do is to come up with a strategy, a security strategy. And when I said the strategy implies a cybersecurity strategy that will be able to fulfill the purpose of the business objective that you have for the business, for your organization. And it has to be done in such a way to look at it that, are you taking your business online? Is there anything that you're doing that can actually expose your most important asset that you have? And that security strategy is going to be something that will protect those assets via what you have in your business objective. And once you have the strategy in place, it will be able to guide you to include that plan that it was talking about. Because that's what's going to be what you will follow all through. Let's take, for example, you have a shopping outlet, but you do not have any web presence at all. Then there is no need for you to have a cloud security strategy. However, if you're using computers and information system and you're using connection to the internet, then you need to look at that exposure that you have to the internet, how you're going to protect that point. You don't necessarily have a web presence, so you don't need that strategy to actually have or to maybe commit some money into things to protecting stuff that you have in the cloud. However, that server that you have in one corner in your office and they have access to internet, how are you going to protect it? So you come up with a strategy for that to protect your business. That's a place to start from.
And I do want to piggyback off of that. So last week I attended the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce Cyber Change events, and Jonathan Homer, he's the Vice President for Strategy and Security for CPS. His previous role was, he was a CISO, or the Chief Information Security Officer for the Department of Homeland Security. He was on the initiative for the Ukraine cyber attacks, and he was there for 4 years. And he was working on one, I believe it was called a zero-day attack, and he actually helped resolve it. And he was working with some public officials, and he asked them, at what stage do you feel comfortable knowing that this attack is gone? And their response was, you never assume that it's gone. You assume that they're always with you. So you have to get into that mentality of kind of like a zero trust. Trust nothing and no one or anything. So, and then one more thing. And also to be cyber ready, you kind of have to be aware. There's a lot of resources out there, and I'll go ahead and mention mine. You can mention the SBA, but UTSA does offer a Cybersecurity 101 course at no cost. We do have it online. Well, it's hybrid. We can come out to your facility as well. And we also do have another cybersecurity awareness course specifically to OT, which is operational technology, and focuses on manufacturers. Right now, manufacturers are a hot topic due to the ransomware, kind of like the pipeline that's been going on. And so we offer that as well at no cost and can train your team at no cost. Once again, no cost.
And especially small business, yes. Thanks for emphasizing that no cost, because again, that is a huge resource. So.
But let me add this also. When you go to the SBA website, there are tons of cybersecurity trainings, a lot of it, and it's free. There are actually some training going on today online. So you can actually hook up to that and be able to see quite a number of trainings that will benefit you. And in terms of when I mentioned the strategy, it's just you looking at your business objectives and how IT influences those objectives for you to achieve it, and then how to secure, to protect your most important asset that is exposed to vulnerability by the use of IT. That's the strategy that I meant. Thank you.
Okay. And Natalie, just from kind of that same question as far as a plan on the legal side, what advice would you give a small business?
So the first thing that we do is really kind of data mapping, understand what data you have that would be attractive to a cyber criminal, and how those attacks might play out. So it's going back to the awareness, right? Realtors are a huge target because there's wire information going back and forth. And those attacks are typically carried out through email. So you want to focus on your email systems. And then how are we going to stop somebody if they have compromised our email system and they've been watching this email traffic going back and forth, and they know that there is a transaction that's supposed to close next week, and they're going to insert fake wire instructions through the email. It's one of the easiest things to solve. It is so low tech. You don't change wire instructions unless you have initiated a call to somebody and confirmed the new wire instructions. That's it. It doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar Star Wars solution. Maybe you don't deal with a lot of people's money. Maybe you're a medical transcriptionist. Maybe your data is not really that interesting to somebody. You're probably more likely going to get hit with a ransomware attack, because what is valuable to you in your company is your ability to access those records, to transcribe what you need to transcribe, and get them back to the medical providers. What's the best way to get something out of your company is to shut off your access and threaten to expose this medical data, because you probably have a business associates agreement with your medical providers. You should. And you're going to be liable to them under your contract. You're going to have potential HIPAA violations if the attacker exposes this information. And so then working through the ways that you can prevent against ransomware attack. That's actually going to be a lot of training for your people about slowing down and looking at their emails and looking for red flags in their emails. You will need some technical solutions. So that's really where we start. What information do you have? What kind of attacks is it going to be most vulnerable to? And then what kinds of technical, administrative, and physical protections do you need to put around that information and around that data? And what makes sense, right? Amazon even could spend their whole budget on information security and still not be perfectly protected. No business can devote all of their resources to security. So it's finding the right balance of what can you afford to do, what can't you afford not to do, and what makes sense. Another thing that's really easy is a lot of small businesses especially don't segment their network and don't tier the access that people have to sensitive data. So you think about the roles that people have. You have a sales force. What parts and information do they actually need access to? Your accounting folks probably need access to pretty much everything. But do you have people who are in roles where they have much more limited access and that's something that's cheap and easy, relatively cheap and easy to do, and can prevent a lot of problems where, if somebody, their credentials get compromised, if they've been properly segmented, you can control the amount of access and the amount of exposure that you've had. I guess one of the other kind of ground floor things is, does your general liability include cyber insurance? Do you need a cyber writer? That insurance can be a huge benefit if a company does suffer a breach or have an attack, because a lot of times those insurance policies come with access to a professional who kind of guides you through an incident response and recovery phase also.
And I like that point, because I think it's one thing that it's really easy to forget is to be able to get insurance for your data, because so often we look at insuring our building, we look at insuring our staff, but without we live and die by data in the information age. So one thing I want you guys to touch on a little bit, because we hear about it a lot, but I never want to assume everybody understands that depth. So when we talk about ransomware, let's talk a little bit about really what it entails briefly, and kind of maybe an extreme example of that. And we'll start with Alyssa and then just kind of work our way down of kind of maybe a story that you've had dealing with ransomware.
A story that I had? Well, personally, I know my son, my son actually, he had ransomware on his computer. It wasn't extensive like what's going on today, but I was able to bypass that and remove it myself. But what caught my eye and how I knew off the bat, because I was grocery shopping and he was kind of panicking, and he took screenshots and sent them to me. And at the bottom, because it said the FBI is asking you to pay for something to log in or whatnot, but at the very bottom it had like a Walgreens advertisement. So right away I knew, it wasn't for real. But you would have to, again, just be cyber aware. I'm not. There's activity groups to be aware of, and Dragos, they're actually an OT manufacturer, but they do focus on OT security. However, they are very on top of letting the community know what is out there, even if it's not for manufacturers. And also CISA has a lot of good resources as well on what to do to protect yourself from ransomware and what to do after it happens as well. And those are free resources. Okay.
Dr. Taiwo, does ransomware tend to target businesses, individuals more, or about the same?
When it comes to ransomware, it depends on who is actually writing the script for the ransomware. If it were to be script kiddies, that means just those guys over the internet that are new into cyber attacks and that are just picking up codes on the internet and trying it out. So those ones are the most dangerous. They're just like the small snakes. They don't have any experience. They're just trying things out. They don't really have any fear for the law or for anything because they're just trying stuff out. So those ones are the ones that really attack small businesses. And one of the ways to which they do that is just to use what we call the brute force attack on your password. And once they get in, because they don't really know what to do, one thing, the thing that they result into is to encrypt your files or have your access that you have to your computer. And I'll tell you that they are only going to decrypt it for you. That means they lock it up by encrypting it. And they're telling you that they're only going to decrypt it, open it back for you when you pay a particular amount. And ways to actually prevent that is to make sure that you use something, when it comes to your password, you use password that is more than 8 characters. That includes both uppercase and lowercase, numbers, special characters. If possible, don't use passwords. Use passphrases. Passphrases are always longer. It's known to you and you alone, and it's longer. It could be up to like between 16 and 24 characters, thereabout. But it's unique to you. So it's not a combination of your date of birth or year of birth or something, so your wife's names, your spouse's name, things of that nature. It's known to you, and it's longer, and it includes those special characters and the rest like that. So when it comes to brute force attack, it's difficult before they will even get to breaking it through cryptanalysis and the rest like that. You probably would have actually changed your passphrase. So that's one way to do that. And the second thing I'll say when it comes to ransomware is back up your data. If you back up your data on your small server, or if you have that backup that is done periodically, when something of that nature comes on, the next thing to do is to report to the legal authorities, and then you just call their bluff, call in an IT guy, and they just do a reinstallation because you have the backup. But if you don't have anything to fall back on, then you'll be thinking of, how are you going to continue doing your business or to make payments to them. But instead of making any payment at all, once you have once you have backed up your data and you do that periodically, then you just get law enforcement involved.
Yeah, and so when it comes to ransomware, businesses and individuals of all sizes are targeted. Some of the most famous ransomware attacks recently have been on municipalities and governments. Atlanta and Baltimore had huge attacks a few years ago that cost millions and millions and millions of dollars to kind of fix. And there's a decision to make. I mean, sometimes the ransom, especially with the kiddies, right, who are just trying something out and they know they're hitting small businesses or individuals. Sometimes the ransom isn't very much, and it can be tempting to pay. The problem that your lawyer will probably tell you about that is you don't know who you're paying, and you may be running afoul of OFAC sanctions, which is the Office of the Comptroller said you cannot do business with these individuals in foreign countries because they have ties to terrorism or other criminal activity. But one of the things about ransomware, a lot of people, I think, still imagine that cyber criminals are like one person alone in a basement, having to individually attack each target and and maybe even writing a particular program or script for each target. And it's not like that. These things are available for purchase, and the attacks can be enhanced by bots or spiders. And so if a cyber criminal has gotten the email list for the coffee shop on the corner for their customers, their preferred customers, the people signed up for their rewards, well, guess what? They just got 250 potential targets. And they'll send out an email. It might be kind of customized to look like, oh, hey, we're giving you a free coffee, click on this link. And you've clicked on the link and you've now downloaded that ransomware, and if you want to be able to use your computer again, you've got to pay me $150. So that's what those look like. And so part of the awareness raise is allowing your employees, giving them the permission to slow down and not be immediately responsive, to train them to look for red flags, look for urgency, look for misspellings in an email address, look for a mismatch, instead of, that it might say, the email says it's coming from Sue's coffee shop, but the email address doesn't correspond to that. And now I've forgotten what the question was. I think they covered it.
No, and I can piggyback off of that because sometimes emails they do mimic legit emails. For example, I experienced an HR email, and I mean it was down to the T, but it asked us to click on this link to verify your timesheet. But my advice is to you guys is to hover over it and just make sure that's the correct site. And that's how I knew. But it was identical from, it was their email address, and it's the way they normally talk. So just watch out for little items like that.
Well, I've got a list of questions. Well, we're getting close on time. We'll probably have time for at least one question from the audience. And we're doing the lunch and learn at the chambers. We started that back. So we'll probably try to get some or all the panelists here soon at one of those lunch and learns to continue this a little more in depth, because I think we could probably do an all-day panel and not even scratch the surface on this. But so whoever can get their hand up. Oh, first hand up.
Is it easier to breach a Mac or a PC, and why or why not?
I think it's easier to breach a PC because Windows have that, what will I call it? The number of users, of people that use the PC is kind of large when it comes to the whole world. And also, at the very beginning, Windows have those vulnerabilities, the bugs in the operating systems, and those and the softwares that they use, that it now tends to be all the weaknesses are all of the vulnerabilities are all over the internet. When it comes to the dark web, just like she rightly mentioned, they sell some of these things. So you have script kiddies attacking anything that has to do with Windows more than Linux or Mac. So it's however, even though Linux and Macs do not necessarily have do not get the kind of attack or the in terms of vulnerabilities that Windows PCs do have, Windows have a lot of security features that, when activated, actually protects the operating system and the softwares.
I would say, go back to like the free resources. Something like 60 or 80% of attacks on Windows systems exploit a known vulnerability with a patch. And I'll tell you, I am terrible at this because I always have 14 tabs open, and so I hate turning off my computer. But restarting your computer periodically to make sure you're getting those updates is one of the best ways to protect your data, and it is free. You just need to make everybody turn off their computer every once in a while.
And then to piggyback off of the Mac versus Windows, Macs typically ask for passwords on every task that you do, where Windows it doesn't. So it's a little bit more secure in that aspect, I would say.
Okay. Well, we are at our time, so to give you guys a chance to network, if you will give Alyssa, Dr. Taiwo, and Natalie a hand, thank them for being here for the information. And I would imagine they will be around. Oh, we have enough time for, okay, we have time for one more question. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about using two-factor authentication.
the password protection, whether it's SMS or even using an authenticator app, but it's constantly changing. It's more dynamic than having a password or a passphrase. It's the same from day to day.
When it comes to protecting operating system or security generally, there's something we call layered defense. And multi-factor authentication is another form. It actually supports, it complements rather, a password or passphrase, because now it has the attacker now has two levels to actually overcome before they can have access to it. So, and multi-factor authentication actually uses something that you have, that means to send a code to your phone. And there is a time frame there, maybe like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So making it very difficult. So even if the attacker or the malicious hacker wants to do anything, it will not be able to perform brute force analysis or cryptanalysis within 5 or 10 minutes. So that's why multi-factor authentication is very, very good. And most, even Windows, Linux, and Mac has those features. It's just that oftentimes than not, we do not activate it. What you just have to do is just to activate those features. Your system doesn't have to be in the cloud. Just using a Windows server or Linux server, you have that option there also for you to activate. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much. Give them a hand again. And let's take about a 10-minute break to reset, and then we'll get on with our next session.